Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, Sample Chapter listeners, and welcome to episode 213 of the Sample Chapter Podcast. Man, this week is such an exciting episode and full of laughs. I am talking with UK author Ivan Wainewright. Ivan and I are discussing his award-winning book, The Other Times of Caroline Tangent. It was a winner at the London Book Fair for Best Indie Book of the Year. And we're going to be hearing all about what that was like for him to win that, as well as the the mistake he made during the event, which was a great laugh. We are talking music, because the book, as you're going to find out, the book dives into time travel and going back to old concerts in time. And we even get sidetracked talking about what concerts, not only that we would like to attend, but concerts that we've actually been to as well. Yeah, and we have a good time discussing the writing techniques, taking good critique, and even some talk about Alliance of Independent Authors, which I haven't mentioned too often here on the show, but it's a very good organization, and actually one that I plan to join here very, very soon. Oh, one thing I wanted to make sure to mention about Ivan's reading coming up is that the story is written from Caroline's point of view. It's Caroline's voice. So, and Caroline is, of course, the Caroline of Caroline Tangent. This is her Other Times of Caroline Tangent. I'm doing a lot of explaining for Caroline, aren't I? Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to point out when you hear the reading, we both forgot to mention or bring up that this is done in her voice. So all of this and so much more is coming up very soon. Ivan's a fantastic guest and a very talented author, and I can't wait to get you to that interview here in just a couple of moments. So stay tuned for that. As for me, I've been very busy lately. My youngest son graduated high school this past weekend. So we were busy preparing for that and getting the house prepared, ready with family coming in, and I had a really good time. It was very special getting to see his graduation, and very proud of him. But anyway, that was great. So not that my son listens to this show, but if he ever was to pick it up sometime, Kiefer, I want to say congratulations once again, and I'm very proud of you. As for my writing, it seems to be a little elevated of late. I've been very motivated to get some writing on Bandit 2 done, trying to get this thing wrapped up. And I think part of that motivation comes from this coming weekend. I will be at the Conquest 53 in Kansas City. I mentioned this last episode, and really looking forward to this event. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Conquest, it's going to be located at the Sheraton Crown Center in Kansas City, Missouri. So you can click the link in the show notes for more information about it. Head on over there. It's going to be going on May 27th to the 29th, so Memorial Day weekend. And I'm so excited because I'm going to be involved in 4 different panels happening that on Friday itself. One of the panels, I can quickly give you what some of these panels are, and then I'm going to be sharing links this week as well, information about them. The one of them I'm going to be talking about is Extraordinary Children in Science Fiction and Fantasy. Another one that I'm involved in is called Cats in Space. And so we're discussing, just like it says, would cats thrive in space? What modifications would they need to be in space? You get Ripley from Alien, she had her cat Jonesy. Also going to be discussing on a third panel, I'm going to be talking about stupid writing tricks, the stylistic flourishes in fiction, and how clear, concise prose should always be the goal of any good writer. So we're exploring the sort of artistic flourishes that elevate our fiction and take our work from good to great. Or if it's done poorly, it'll be god awful. So we're going to be discussing our own work as well as writing from authors that hit the mark or fell a bit short. And finally, I'm going to be on the panel for The Butterfly Effect, which is naturally, that's going to be discussing the unintended consequences of the butterfly effect and time travel. So all of these are just fantastic. I cannot wait to discuss them. Meet the other co-hosts on the panel to see what all we can come up with. It's going to be a good time, man. And if you're going to be in Kansas City this weekend, I hope you stop by. As I said, all of these panels that I'll be a part of are going to be on Friday the 27th. That's the only day, unfortunately, that I can make it up there this year. So all four of those are happening that day. But rest assured, the whole weekend will be a good time, and there's going to be a whole lot of other panels and fantastic authors and all sorts of great stuff happening. So, like I said, click that link in the show notes for Conquest 53 and get on over there and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, let me go ahead and thank our sponsor, Scrivener, my favorite writing software made for writers by writers. As I said, I've been doing a lot of writing this past week, Bandit 2, and going along with that, I've also been moving a lot of stuff around because I realized I've done a lot of rewriting. I mentioned a while back I had to go back and rewrite some stuff, and I didn't delete anything. But I was creating new scenes, and I finally spent some time this week. And as a part of cleaning this up and getting it prepared, I went back and started moving chapters around and moving scenes around into their appropriate chapters. So I have everything in a nice linear style now, and set up so that everything is okay. So first this, and then this, and then this, and it's Scrivener makes all of that so easy to do. Check out this advertisement for Scrivener and how you can save 20%.
Jason here. Hey, I wanted to take a moment and tell you about my favorite writing tool, Scrivener. Now, I know you've heard about Scrivener because their writing software has been embraced by hundreds of thousands of other writers like you and I, from the novice to best-selling novelists. The reason we all use it is because of Scrivener's core concept to bring all the writing tools you use together in a single application. And with tools like automatic backup, character maps, project goals, and let's not forget that amazing corkboard, you can see why I use Scrivener every day. As a bonus for Sample Chapter Podcast listeners, use code CHAPTER for 20% off your desktop version. Scrivener writing software, built by writers for writers.
Thank you once again to Scrivener. I also want to thank affiliate of the show, Writer's Block Coffee. They have 3 amazing flavors. There's the Signature Blend Writer's Block, the Deadline Dark, and then, as always, my personal favorite, the Whiskey Barrel Aged Blend. You can order one, you can order all 3, you can order one time, or you can set it up on automatic shipping every month so that you don't miss out and you never run out of the wonderful Writer's Block coffee. As I said, they are an affiliate of the show, so that means if you follow the link in the show notes or go directly over to writersblockcoffee.com and coupon code sample chapter, you're going to save 10%, and the show gets a little something to help out with expenses. So hop on over there and give it a try. I want to also thank podcast friends, Pop Goes the Culture Network, home to about 10 other fantastic shows, all of them incredible and all of them pop culture related. I mentioned last time that one of my favorite shows on the network is back, and that is Alamo Drafthouse. And again, they are fantastic. And last week it was a lot of fun. They were discussing the upcoming movie. Well, now it's out now, but the Downton Abbey movie that was coming out. And oddly enough, funnily enough, my wife and I were discussing possibly going to see it. But instead, what we decided to do was wait to see that until after we finally started the series, which we did. We've already gone a season and a half into it, and you know what? That's a pretty good show, I have to admit. So anyway, but click that link in the show notes for all of the shows over at Pop Goes the Culture Network, including Alamo Drafthouse and their flagship show, Pop Goes the Culture Podcast. Hey, don't forget to also be following the show on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's very easy to find. We're just the Sample Chapter Podcast. You can see where we share every episode each week, as well as some throwback episodes every week. We throw it back to several past episodes because, like I said, this is episode 213. So we have a lot of back episodes to share, all genres and all types of writers. If you're not a social media type person, but you'd like to contact the show, you can do so at samplechapterpodcast@gmail.com or leave me a voicemail by calling 660-851-1146 and make it a special voicemail, and we'll make sure to hear that on an upcoming episode. All right, everyone. Well, without further ado, let's get on over to our interview with award-winning UK author Ivan Wainewright. Hello, Sample Chapter listeners. Welcome back to an exciting new episode. Hey, this week we are jumping over to Kent, England in the UK to have a little chat with a new friend of the show, Ivan Wainewright. Ivan is a winner of the 2022 Selfies Book Award for Fiction for his second novel, The Other Times of Caroline Tangent. It's an extremely important award, and wonderful that I'm just very green with jealousy about it and cannot wait to talk to him about it. He is an avid music fan, enjoying gigs all over the world, the Marquee in Wardour Street, and many other muddy festivals. When not writing, he can be found watching and occasionally playing football, running, listening to music from Chumbawamba to Led Zeppelin, and arguing over politics and trying to cook. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the show, Ivan Wainewright.
Thank you, Chase. That's very good. What a great introduction.
Oh my goodness. You know, it's so helpful whenever my guests have a website or claim their Amazon page so that I have somewhere to reference.
I've only just updated it recently, so the website, so that's got a little bit of information on there. But yes, gosh, you actually, even hearing you say that takes me back to my my teenage years of going to gigs in this tiny bar in London called the Marquee. It was very iconic at the time. It's wonderful.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I much the same way. I grew up in the 80s, so I was always going to see all the long-haired rock and roll bands of the time. See Bon Jovi a few times, saw Kiss, and I mean, it just, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
One of them that I think I like to tell about is I got to see the Cars in one of their last concerts before they broke up. That was cool. So I got to see that. She Might Drive You Crazy. Drive.
I know it. Yeah.
All that. So that was a good concert. One of my early ones.
Lovely. We saw. We saw. My friend and I saw the last concert ever in London of Thin Lizzy. If you know the Irish band.
Thin Lizzy. Yeah.
And we didn't have tickets, and we had to tout. We had to go outside, and this is back in whatever it was, the 80s as well. And we had to wait, and we were just about to go. And a couple came up to us and said, "Do you want to buy our tickets?" And we said, "Yeah, but we haven't got much money." They said, "That's all right. We're just selling them at face value. You can have them." So we said, "Okay, thank you." Bought them and rushed in. It was amazing. So yeah, I know how you feel.
Oh, that's fantastic! Wow. Yeah, the Boys That Are Back in Town, like one of my fantastic, like, got to be in my top 20 songs.
It's terrible, isn't it? We could talk music all afternoon, Jason.
Exactly.
Well, hence my book. This is why I wrote it. So
it's a great segue right into your book, The Other Times of Caroline Tangent, which is all about. Well, I'll let you tell us what it's about.
Thank you. So it has a catchphrase or a strap line, which is, "If you could travel back in time to see any concert, who would you go to see?" And it's about Caroline Tangent and her husband, John. And John invents a time machine so they can visit iconic gigs in history. So Woodstock, or David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, or even Edith Piaf back in the 1930s of Paris. But they can't tell anybody they're doing so. And as their trips to the past continue, so Caroline starts to realize it could change a particularly devastating moment from their own past. But she also realizes that they don't want the same outcome. And then until on one journey, one of them does something unthinkable, which will change both their lives forever. ...
Oh my goodness. That's a great idea. And I can only assume that this was born from your love of going to concerts.
It was partly that. Certainly, there was always something there. What actually happened? I mean, it was just complete luck. It's one of those. And as a writer, you sit there sometimes and think, "What should I write about?"
Mhm.
And I was actually looking on a website, on one of those sort of chat boards that people are talking about music history, and somebody asked the question, "What gig would you have gone to if you could?" And I suddenly thought, "Oh, wouldn't that be a good idea? What if, someone invented a time machine, you could go back and see it?" And as soon as I did that, all these other things started churning in my mind, like what would they go to see, and how could they get the right clothes to wear, or even the money? How could they buy tickets if they went back in time? And then a few minutes later, I suddenly thought of, I hope it's okay to call it the big twist in the book without giving anything away.
There you go.
And I thought of those two things. And I actually spent about 2 hours just Googling, because I couldn't believe no one else had done it. So I spent ages looking at Amazon and book sites and websites. Eventually found, or I hoped that no one had done it. So I thought I'd better write it quickly.
Oh my goodness, what a great feeling that had to have been to come upon an idea and you realize that you are the first.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because time travel is one of those difficult subjects that if you're not careful gets quite hackneyed.
Mhm.
And I remember reading, I'm sure a lot of your listeners both know the book Save the Cat, which is a very famous screenwriting book. Yeah. And he has a lovely phrase in there where he says, all the producers say the same things. They say, "I want the same but different." And I thought, yeah, that's not bad. Maybe I'm onto that, to say it is time travel, but it's a little bit of a change. So yeah, it was hopefully a good little change on that.
Yeah. It's kind of like after Die Hard came out, all of a sudden everything became, okay, Die Hard on a boat or Die Hard on a train.
Yeah.
It's I want that, but now we're gonna do it here. So yep.
Things blowing up, that's all we want. It's great. So
There you go. That's it. And you did such a great job with the book and the promotion of it that like we already said, this won the UK 2022 Selfies Book Award for Best Independently Published Fiction at the London Book Fair. Tell us about that. What was that feeling to get the call or to find out that you were nominated? Tell us about that process.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I still feel very 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 wonderful about that. So the nomination was many months ago, and then about, I suppose, 4 weeks before the book fair, so that was in April, so about sometime in March I got an email, and it flicked in my email and it said, "Congratulations, you've been shortlisted." And I thought, wow, that's amazing in itself. So I was delighted I've been shortlisted, and there was 9 other books. So I thought, okay, well, there's a chance. That's really good, but nothing much more than that. But I was still quite excited. And then what actually happened on the day was now very embarrassing. So I went along to the London Book Fair, had a look around. That was all great. And there's a little part of the book fair put aside for the presentation. And I sat down, and before I sat down, I met a number of the other shortlisted authors. And honestly, Jason, some of them have been shortlisted before. Some of them have had 10 years of experience, published all these books. And I sat down and I suddenly realized I wasn't going to win. I mean, how would I win? There was no point. And they asked us all, if you can imagine like a mini stage at the front, and they asked us all to bring our books to the front just in case we won. And I didn't bother. I just sat there because I thought, well, I'm not going to win. So anyway, then they read out, they say the winner is Other Times of Caroline Tangent. I somehow stumbled to the stage and say to the poor guy, "My book, I haven't got it. It's on another stand across the hall. Shall I go and get it?" And he says, "Yes, go and get it." So I run across the hall, come back, grab the book, sit down, and then he kindly read out the announcement about it. But it was great, and one of the things that was really wonderful was that the award was so it was the best independently published book, and it wasn't just about the writing, but it was also about the content behind it. So it was about the cover, the marketing, the approach you took to it, and so on. So that was really reassuring. But I felt as if I'd, the time and effort I put into it was really good, and it wasn't just about, creating some content. It was the whole package, and that was a great thing.
Oh my goodness, yes. Now was this like best overall, or was it for a certain category?
There were 3 categories. So there was fiction, children's fiction, and memoir or autobiography.
Oh,
So someone else won the children's one, and funnily enough, one of the women I was sitting beside, won the best memoir, and then I won the best fiction. So yeah. It was
wow, man. Okay, so I mean, I was already impressed, but then yeah, to hear that, I mean, this was all fiction, so it doesn't matter if this was sci-fi, romance, whatever. It's all together in this one big lump, and yours came out on top. That's very impressive. Very well done.
It was interesting because most of the other books, I think there was 9 shortlisted. I think 8 were thrillers. Sorry, 7 were thrillers. I can't remember, there was another one. And then there was mine, as you say, which was, I suppose, a sci-fi genre trend. So that was, it was really good.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. So, so now what went into that? I know, I know you're also a fan of the Alliance of Independent Authors. I'm a big fan as well. Been following them for years. Are you a member?
I am indeed, yeah. So that's where my book was, luckily. So they had a stand at the fair, and I took it over there, and it was actually sort of another bit of embarrassment. It was a horrible. I can't keep I'm so embarrassed all the time. It was a wonderful day, I promise. But what happened? I won the award, and then they immediately wanted to interview me about it. The ally did, and of course I was still 6 feet above the ground at that point. So they did a video of me afterwards, and you can see my face is just cracked into a massive smile. But they're a great organisation. I think they really are, and they do so much good support for authors in terms of everything from just giving advice through to the Facebook group, which is really good for authors to ask questions on. They try to support authors in terms of some of the there were some issues a few years ago, probably still are, about some of the Audible royalties. So I think they're a great organisation to support this sector.
Absolutely, yeah. That's they are on my to-do list for this year. I put them in my author budget to okay, I'm signing up to join them this year. I'd wanted to in years past, but just I didn't feel accomplished enough and didn't have the money in the bank account. But
you won't regret it. You won't regret it.
I'm looking forward to it. So
Good.
that's coming up this summer, I think, is when I'm going to be signing up with them. Now, this was your the Other Times of Caroline Tangent. That was your second book. Your first one, the Kosher Deli. Now, that was your first one. Came out a couple years ago. What? Well, tell us a little bit about this book first.
So the Kosher Deli, and that's spelt DELHI, which will become apparent why in a second. So the Kosher Deli was a more of a general fiction or contemporary fiction novel, and that was about a character called Vic, who was growing up in set in the 1990s in the north of England, and he was half Indian, half Jewish. And there's a bit of my background there, which I can come to if need be. And he's living there, but he's not really paying attention to what's going on in society and in life. And then he meets Yvonne, who's a bit of a Scottish protagonist and Scottish antagonist. And she really picks him up and sort of shows him what he's been missing in life. And that shows the trip they go from, a journey they take from the north of England to London. Actually end up in New York. So there's the actual restaurant, the Kosher Deli, is in New York in the book. And that was much more of that was a, let's say, contemporary fiction, and that was more where I was thinking politically. And so there's a bit of background of discussing some of the issues we see in society and some of the things going on in the world.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. And it seems like it was very well received and launched your author career. what do you think? What did you learn from that first book that you put towards the second book, or lessons you think that helped you with the second book?
Yeah, that's really interesting because the first book, I I I wrote it and got it published with a small publisher in the UK, and I learned so much from what I thought was writing a book to actually discovering what it really involves. So one great example is when I took it to them, it was 120,000 words. And then by the time that the editor had finished with it, it chopped out almost 1/3 of it, which is a complete shock to me. And then we sort of put a bit more back, so it ended up at about 90,000. But I learned about working with editors. I learned about some of the marketing side of things that they did. I learned about, in particular, one of the things which actually I didn't do with them, but I did later with Caroline Tangent, was working with a developmental editor or a structural editor. And I've become a massive fan of that. So when I wrote my second book, I wrote the book, gave it to a few friends and family, and they were really kind and gave me some feedback. But then I found as I say, a developmental editor and sent it to her. And she was just amazing because she gave me so many great ideas about saying, well, you've done this, why don't you do that? And how about structuring it differently? And by the way, one thing she said was, by the way, all your secondary characters, all they really do is just listen to Caroline talk. They don't have any dreams of their own. And I thought, what a very good point. And I don't know if you've ever read a book. I'm holding a book called Story Genius by Lisa Cron. Have you ever come across that?
Oh, I don't think I have.
So there's a great book. So Lisa Cron is like a writing coach, and Story Genius is fabulous. It's just a brilliant book to help you do writing. And one of the things that she says in it is that all your secondary characters in a novel think that they are your primary character. And I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, wow.
So it really gave me a better way of, writing their background and so on. So I think that what the first book did, I enjoyed it. I hope it was good. I'm proud of it. But certainly, the second book, I realized so more about keeping things sharp, keeping things, fine-tuned, making sure that every chapter, even every paragraph, moves the story on. If you listen to agents and publishers and people talk about it, these are the things they often say about some of us as independent writers, is that we get a little bit, carried away, and we go, oh, I'm going to write this beautiful chapter all about something, and it doesn't really do something for the novel. So all of that has sort of given me a much better feel, hopefully, for how to, I think, write a book which is a little bit more, hopefully, what people want to read.
And that's great to have, that you have that circle of friends, and then the developmental editor, and so many people you can rely upon. And that was world changing for me, to find my local writing group who really helped me find direction with my first book. We put on our first convention years back, and we had some, like, quote, real authors came in, and they were giving lessons, and I won a free critique from one of them. And I was like, oh, great. Yeah, here's my first 3 chapters for what would be my first book. And I got the feedback, and she says, it wasn't until the last 4 lines of your 3rd chapter before I realized what was happening.
Oh, no.
She's like, the rest of it was all just background information that you don't need. So, I'm sorry, but you don't need any of that. And I was looking at it going, she's totally right. Yeah, it's all fluff. And I've since learned how much of that, though, it's still useful for the author because it's information we need.
Definitely.
But it's like, yeah, going back through, you got to have that critical eye of knowing, like, okay, this doesn't need to be there, though. It's not, like you said, advancing the story. It's not doing anything else. And so many, not just independent authors, but authors in general, we all do that same thing.
Yeah. And in fact, ironically, I think that I've read, we probably shouldn't name names this time, but a few big authors of the last few years who I love, or I used to, And I think when you get a really, really, really big author, it's almost as if the editors become afraid to critique them. And I think one or two books I've read are definitely too big now. They would have done with a good chop out of some words as they go.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like whenever you see, I mean, it's no different from a big name author, and you get some parts where you're like, oh gosh, this is just dragging on. And same thing with directors who get sometimes, I don't know, they get a movie that they've been looking forward to, and so they want to make it the way they want to make it, and it's like, wow, you could really cut 45 minutes and save us all some time in this movie.
But I think that's such a, I think it's again, well, for all authors, whether it's traditional or indie, as you said, having the critical eye, having someone look at it. I'll tell you a nice quick story about my first book. So this is, I don't know, one or two other people I know have said this, so my partner Sarah, I've now written 2 books and a few other attempted ones, and she hasn't read a single one, which is fine. They're not her cup of tea, which is okay. But she has read both of the first chapters, chapter 1s, and the Kosher Deli. I gave her the first chapter one day, and she read it and came on the train and came back in the evening. And she sat down with me. I said, so what did you think of it? And she said, right, Ivan, this is going to be difficult. So I said, okay. So she said, right, I'm going to tell you this. Don't be angry. I said, all right, I promise. So she then started reading off like, 6 or 8 things, 1 or 2 good, and a few of them weren't. And you're right. I sat there and I had to think, she's absolutely right, Jason. Why was I thinking this? What did I mean by that? And so that was almost my first example of someone, not quite. I remember being much younger and, and other people saying the same thing. But, in my later life of writing, then, she was definitely a good bellwether.
Oh, that's great. It's funny you say that, because fans of the show will know I had the same experience with my wife, that she read through my first book, and I made the mistake of, when I got done with it and I had edited it, like I just ran it through like Microsoft Word to fix it, and I did the huge faux pas of, instead of sitting down and actually looking through all 300 errors, I just said, fix all.
Oh.
And then I hit publish. And my wife started reading it, and halfway through the first chapter, she goes, I can't believe you've published this. What have you done? And so she went through it and was just red marking it, and she would stop and go, what are you thinking here? Like, I don't understand this. And she eviscerated me, but it was there was only once or twice that it really hurt. And we had a discussion that was very adult oriented, and like, okay, but it was also very, very good. And I look back on it fondly, and same thing. She hasn't read anything I've written since. She's afraid. She's afraid of what I'm like. Oh, no. It's like, but she's also been very involved with all of my books since then. I really depend on her opinion and her views, and she helps me so much get unstuck with. A lot of times it's just a simple solution, and I'm overthinking it.
That's wonderful. Well, let's sum up that bit. I really think, for anyone listening, if they are an indie and they're trying to publish a book, if you have a budget, and it's the hardest thing, but I think if you do have a budget of something, having an editor, structural editor, look at it, or someone who can, who knows what they're talking about, is, I think, one of the most valuable areas. So if you can afford it, I really recommend. I think it's a brilliant thing to do.
Definitely, I agree completely. So what are you working on now? What's next for you?
So I do get a little bit paranoid about saying what's next, because then I start something and find it's the wrong thing. So it's I can't believe I do this, honestly, because I still, if I had any advice to my younger self, it would be stop writing so many chapter 1s and knuckle down and write one book. So I have another time travel book in hopefully coming along. It's a bit more classic, but it's a slightly more of a time travel, a bit more of a thriller. Caroline Tangent has got its, hopefully it's thrilling aspects to it, but it is much about the music and about the wonderful aspect of being able to go back. And there's hopefully some decent sort of characters in it. And this one's a little bit more, I suppose, akin to a time travel film of some sort, which is not what I'm trying to do, but it's where it's turning out. So my apologies if it's okay just to say that, because that's as I said, I know that as soon as I start saying something else, then I'll immediately change it. So that's where I am.
That's all right. I'm the same way. I have at least 2 books this past year that I've started and done a few chapters and then set them aside so I could get back on the. Well, I think it was just I had to get it out. I had to get something started, set it aside, and then go back to what I was working on that was coming out. Like I set a date, and it's like I got to get back to this. But the other ones they're waiting. They'll be there when I'm ready. So.
It's not a bad thing. And again, just putting a book down that you're writing, going away and coming back. And I think there's 2 things. One is it can be really good because then you can start seeing if it is good or if it gets you excited again. If you can read it and get excited, it's good for everyone else.
Yeah.
But there's also another lovely quote I learned. I think it was Ben Aronovich, who's a UK author. I think it was Ben Aronovich. If it wasn't, I'm going to be very embarrassed, whoever did say it. He did say that if you leave a book too long, the characters get bored and walk away. And I love that expression. I do know that, where if you don't worry, if you leave something too long, you'll come back and it just isn't there anymore. So there's a fine line sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually meant to ask you too, though, during it, though, if you, and maybe this comes up in the book, but if you could go back, what concert is on your list?
That's great. I'm glad you asked. I'm gonna cheat and say 2. The first is actually that Edith Piaf concert. I think going back to see not just the fact of Edith Piaf singing in the 1930s, but imagine going to Paris in the 30s, and again, partly to see the environment and the atmosphere, know what's going to happen. That would be incredible. That would be an incredible trip and a good concert. But if you had to push me, then for pure hedonism, I'd go and see an early concert by The Who. Not when they were big enough to be selling out huge stadiums, somewhere in between. And I think I'd have to take some earplugs, but I think that would be a marvelous thing to see.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, I think one of them I would love to be present for, like Eric Clapton at the Royal Albert Hall in London when he recorded his 24 Nights album.
Yeah.
That would be really good. Or maybe, my wife and I saw him in 2008, and it brought tears to my eyes. Like I finally got to see Eric Clapton, and we'd seen Genesis the year before.
Oh yeah.
And that was another one that was just, she and I were so excited. And I'm actually reading Phil's autobiography now, and I thought, oh man, as soon as you got to talking, I thought, oh, how much fun would it be to see them in concert, like in 85, 86, in their big heydays. They're around Invisible Touch and all that. Oh, that would be something.
It's a fun subject, isn't it? And plenty of people have told me that they've had book clubs, and they read the book and obviously discuss the book and some of the things in there. But as part of that, everyone eventually has a glass of wine and says, "Who would you go and see?" And that's what people go on about it.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, yeah, it definitely lends itself to the discussion.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, Ivan, where can people find and follow you?
So I've got my website, which is ivanwainewright.com, and that's Wainwright with an E in the middle. Or actually, I'm most active on Twitter. So again, if you go to Twitter and look for Ivan Wainwright, WAINEWRIGHT, then I'm on Twitter, and I still mostly enjoy Twitter for all its challenges. There are some nice people on there. There's some good people. Book Twitter is a nice place to be. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter, and that's a good place to find me.
Wonderful. Okay, and everybody knows I'm going to have links for that in the show notes. So whenever this episode comes up, we'll have them tagged on the social media, and it'll be right there in the show notes. So everybody can look for that there. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a real delight talking to you, and congratulations again on the award. It's well deserved, and I'm so happy for you, and I look forward to what you put out in the future.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Make sure to let me know whenever your next book's coming out, so that we can
we'll definitely
help promote it for you.
Oh, that's very kind. You've got it.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for me to step aside with my delicious Writer's Block coffee and hand the floor over to my guest, Ivan Wainewright, with The Other Times of Caroline Tangent.
Thank you, Jason. So I'm going to read just the prologue, which is just a few pages, but hopefully that will give everyone a good taster for the book. Paris, October 1935. We're in Les Gournes, in the Pigalle district of Paris, sitting at a table so close to the stage that I could almost reach out and touch it. John picks up a bottle of 1930 Chateau Haut-Briand and empties it into our glasses. I've never tasted such delicate wine. The musicians are warming up, playing scales on their trumpets, tapping cymbals, balancing a double bass. Round us, everyone is smoking. I try not to cough, but the low ceilings in the club create a permanent haze above my head. I lean over to my husband. You know, I forget sometimes how smoky bars can be. The band leader on stage sits with a cigarette nonchalantly dangling between his lips, tuning his guitar. In his suit and tie, he is the epitome of cool. Do you know who that is? John whispers to me. I shake my head. Django Reinhardt. By this time, he and Stefan Grappelli are already famous. He'll go on to tour with Duke Ellington in the States in a few years. I catch my breath. And I think I saw Maurice Chevalier earlier. What an era to be living in. John catches the waiter's eye and he hurries over, weaving elegantly between the tables. My husband taps our wine bottle. Encore, s'il vous plaît. Oui, monsieur. The garçon dashes off. A couple at a nearby table glower jealously. Isn't the wine expensive? I say in a low voice. The dearest on the menu. It'll be out of our reach if we didn't benefit from such an amazing exchange rate. We both burst out laughing. John scratches his leg. These trousers are so uncomfortable, Kaz. How did people put up with this material? It was normal for them. And you look very handsome. The double-breasted style suits you. I smooth my hands down the front of my silk Madeleine Vionnet dress. Personally, I love the clothes, but I'm not sure if I want to keep this perm. The hubbub of voices around us changes from loud murmurs to excited chatter, and a few people clap. I turn back to face the stage. A petite woman dressed in a black dress is walking on. She approaches the microphone and nervously nods at the audience. I grab John's arm. John, it's Edith Piaf, in the flesh. John's grin is as broad as the Seine. Can you believe it? No, I still can't. Me neither, but it really is, and we're really here. I wish we could tell our friends how incredible it is, I say wistfully, but we can't. We never will be able to. The audience hush, Reinhardt taps his feet, and the band strikes up. A few feet in front of us, 21-year-old Edith Piaf begins to sing, and I sink back into my chair, my eyes glued on the diminutive artiste. Perhaps of all our trips, this one is the most unimaginable. But we don't have to imagine it. We're here in 1935 Paris. In a few years, Adolf Hitler will invade the French capital. In May 1968, there will be protests and wildcat strikes in the city. And less than 20 years after that, the Musée d'Orsay will open its doors. Fast forward to 2021, and Pigalle will be famous for its neon-lit red light district rather than smoky jazz bars and artist studios. But not yet. Tonight, Edith Piaf sings, and we can watch undisturbed.
All right, so that was Ivan Wainewright reading a section from The Other Times of Caroline Tangent. The book is available right now, and there's a link in the show notes for Ivan and the books. Make sure you find and follow him in those show notes. It's well worth it, and he's a great guy, so I invite you to check out all of his work and see what else he has to offer. Don't forget to also click the link in our show notes for Conquest 53 coming up in just a few days. Also check out our podcast friends, sponsor and affiliate, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out next time when I'm back with an all-new author, a brand new book, and an all-new sample chapter. I hope to see you at Conquest 53. So until next time, take care.